Thank you for listening to We Have Ways of Making You Talk. Sign up to our Patreon to receive bonus content, live streams, and our weekly newsletter with money off books and museum visits as well, plus early access to all live show tickets. That's patreon.com/WeHaveWays. There was a low mist formed over the ground, about waist high, and I shall never forget it as long as I live. The rest of the crew were down in the trench, hopefully asleep. I don't know whether they were or not. Sleep was very difficult to get because you were on edge all the time. And I was staring ahead, as I say, fighting hard to keep my eyes open, and I heard this creaking noise. Now the Japs mostly seemed to wear leather strapping, and that's the noise I heard, was this leather creaking. And to my absolute horror, out of the mist, a line of figures charging forward, running. They didn't shout anything. They didn't say anything. They were just running straight towards us.
Oh. So that was Norman Bowdler, who was in the 25th Dragoons, operating Grant Lee tanks. Should we just come down and just call them Lees from now on?
Let's just call them Lees.
Okay. He's in a Lee tank. In the middle of the admin box, on the 9th of February 1944, and Bowdler is an interesting character. He's 20 years old, and I think one can sort of only imagine a journey coming from Dunchurch near Rugby in Warwickshire, then Tidworth Camp, Bovington, then the next thing he knows, he's being issued with tropical kit up to Liverpool, sailing out, bye, see ya. Never knowing where you're coming back, if at all. Then coming into Bombay, gates of India and all the rest of it, and Pune, then Calcutta, jungle training in Ranchi, and by the 9th of February, he's been in the admin box for a few days. He's come over the Ngakyadok Pass, the Okidok Pass, as we mentioned in the last episode, this tiny corner of northern Burma in the Arakan, and he's completely surrounded, as is everyone else in the admin box, by Japanese troops. And that night, he's on turret duty, and that's when he hears the creaking, and then sees. And literally, he's frozen at that moment. And then he opens fire with the machine gun, as does everybody else. Suddenly this huge cacophony. And they hit these Japanese as they're coming out of the mist, literally 50 yards or so. And this keeps going on for a certain bit until there's absolute silence, and that's it. And the following morning, they go out on a foot patrol to count the dead, and they found 20 Japanese, including with some with magnetic mines, which obviously they were trying to put stealthily on the sides of the tanks. And he sees one officer kneeling with his hands over one eye and no obvious damage at all, but he's absolutely covered in dew and he's clearly dead, but he doesn't look dead. And as he approaches him, he then leans over to him. He still can't see him move. So he touches him and the officer falls over. And what had happened is he'd been shot straight through the eye. And the last movement he'd done would have been to sink to his knees and put his hand to his eye, and then he'd obviously died in position.
Gosh.
But on him are the papers which reveal the entire plans for Operation Hargo. But obviously what we've done there is we've jumped the gun a little bit.
Welcome, everyone, to part 3 of Burma 44. James and I taking you through the epic encounters between 14th Army and the Japanese 15th Army. In fact, it's quite handy.
Bit confusing.
Well, confusing or easy to remember. It's once you know which one's which, and you know that they're adjacent, I guess it's not that difficult. But welcome, and we've done a lot of background, a lot of build-up. We've covered a lot of the politics. We've covered a lot of the challenges that basically the British are facing and deal with during the monsoon break. That there's this enforced monsoon break on the campaigning in this part of the world. It's a far more rigorously enforced campaigning season than, say, the old European campaigning season, which those of you who listen to the podcast over the years will know that in Europe, campaigning season does not apply particularly. Yep. Things slow down in the winter, but they carry on. Whereas in Burma, they stop. And in the 6 months, the British have sorted themselves out. But the Japanese, in the meantime, have taken that break, that time, to figure out what their next move is going to be, to weigh up the situation, and to come to some conclusions about what their ongoing strategy ought to be, which are remarkable.
Yes, they are.
Given their situation.
It has to be said, they are quite ambitious. One last thing I'll just say is that one of the things that we haven't mentioned beforehand is that Mountbatten is absolutely determined there should be no more campaign seasons. So he wants to, whatever they're doing, factor in the monsoon. because you're going to keep fighting from now on. The Japanese don't, so therefore we do, is basically the principle. So everyone's gearing up for, the beginning of 1944 to continue beyond May all the way through the summer. So the situation for the Japanese is that they're all at kind of sites in 6s and 7s. I mean, Burma is the kind of one area where they're not in massive retreat, but they also know that the Allies are building up strength. They also know that the Arakan front is threatened.
Yeah.
And indeed the northeast front, which is a bit from kind of what is now Manipur state into Burma. And basically right at the very top and at the level of General Masakatsu Kawabe, who is the commanding officer of the Burma Army area, as well as the Southern Army HQ in Singapore and Imperial GHQ in Tokyo. Those three higher echelons of command are all as one, that what is needed is offensive operations to ensure that the British don't come back into Burma.
Yeah.
They don't really have any ambition to take over the Raj, as it happens, despite British fears. That's not what they're about. They know that's a step too far now by the beginning of 1944. But what they do want to do is make sure that they don't lose Burma. Burma's very valuable for them because of the oil and timber and all the rest of it, and rubber, even though actually they can't transport it anymore. But obviously, that's not really the point. I mean, it is a point, but it isn't, if something. It isn't to the Japanese.
If you're an expansionist imperialist, what you're going to do is expand and then face the problems that's brought on you later, is the point.
Yes,
isn't it?
and don't forget there are plans afoot to kind of push on down through China along the coast and try and get to what is Indochina, which becomes Vietnam, that spring. And that is, so then you have this huge area of, Thailand is coming on the side of the Japanese, and you've got, Indochina and Burma and Singapore and Malaya all in, and Sumatra all in Japanese hands. And so maybe that's a way in we can hold the Americans at bay in the Pacific, and we can make advantage of those supplies, which we can now get overland because we can go into southern China if we get the China operation successful. So all that is going on. But what they absolutely don't want to do is suffer any kind of reverse in Burma. But actually, there's two armies in the Burma army area. There's 15th Army, which is on the northwest front, which is on the kind of sort of, Imphal area. And then the 28th Army under Shozo Sakurai, which is in the Arakan. And what they decided at the very, very top is there's going to be a two-pronged approach. There's going to be a push into India to absolutely try and take Imphal and possibly get up to Dimapur, maybe, but definitely Imphal, and hold that area, because that will then deny it to the British.
Yeah, it's about blocking Burma off.
It's blocking Burma off, yeah. So, but they have no intention of going any further into India. But as a prelim, what they want to do is push the British back in the Arakan. And the plan is to go in, and there's three British divisions from 15 Corps, Philip Christenson's 15 Corps. There's three British divisions. You've got the 5th Division on the coast, on the western side of the Mayu Range, which, for those of you who weren't listening to the last episode, is this spine of hills at 20 miles inland from the coast. And then you've got 7th Indian Division on the eastern side of the Mayu Range. And then beyond the Kalapanzin River, you've got the 81st West African Division. So the idea for Operation Hargo, which is the one in the Arakan, is to infiltrate either side of the 7th Indian Division, cut off the Ngakudok Pass, come in round the top, encircle 7th Indian Division, then move over the Ngakudok Pass into the 5th Indian Division's area, come in from behind, encircle them again by cutting them off to the coast and crushing them in the kind of the middle of the sandwich, effectively. And then you can deal with 81st Division all on, whenever you want. But by defeating the ones on the west, you're cutting off the supply lines from southern Bengal, what is now Bangladesh.
Yeah.
So that's the idea. And they're infiltrating up between the 81st and the 7th Indian Division in the middle. That's the plan.
There is an irony in all of this, isn't there, with 15th Army in particular, with Renya Motoguchi, who's in charge, is that...
Well, he's in charge of 15th Army on the Indian front.
There's the irony with him that he had ruled that they'd ruled out the idea of getting into India generally until the Chindits.
Yeah.
And the Chindits, by giving the appearance, and certainly, by being spun by Western press as having sort of carried out this long-range penetration that's been extremely successful and irksome to the enemy, and proved that what you can do is kind of live a hand-to-mouth existence in the jungle, be self-propelled and self-contained, and sort of engage in a kind of prototypical deep battle, but in the jungle. with air supply and so on. So to substitute air supply, the Japanese the idea is to steal supply, but that's their substitute for air supply. That they're beguiled by the Buttigieg in particular is beguiled by the Chindits. And
yes, he is, and he's got much more ambitious ideas for this than GHQ in Tokyo or Southern Army headquarters in Singapore, or even Kawabe, who is CEO of the Burma area. So Mutaguchi thinks, actually, what I'll do is not just take Imphal. I'll actually take Kohima, because if I can take Kohima, I can cut off the one single road that leads down from Dimapur. Then Dimapur is going to be easy. Once I've got Dimapur, then I can cross the Brahmaputra and get into the plains of Assam. Then I can overrun the Allied airfields in Assam, which are feeding the nationalists in Chongqing. First of all, I might be able to get an insurrection in the whole of Bengal, which then topples over the rest of the Raj. Whilst at the same time, I can then cut off the artery of supplies into Nanjing, and maybe we can win the war in China after all. Maybe.
Hats off to Ord Wingate, then. In that case.
Yes. So that's the plan, and specifically the plan for so that is Operation Hugo.
Yeah.
And that is planned for March. And what they want to do with Hargo, which is the Arakan operation, is one, defeat the British in the Arakan and secure that side of the entry point into Burma.
Yeah.
But two, draw troops away from Imphal before they go into Imphal, because they feel that Imphal is a stronger nut to crack than Arakan.
It's a two-fisted punch.
Yes, and rather confusingly, there's two Sakurais, because 28th Army is commanded by Shozo Sakurai, and he gives the 55th Division the job of defeating the British in the Arakan, which is commanded by Lieutenant General Tadashi Hanaya. But under him is the 55th Infantry Group, which is like a sort of Kampfgruppe, like a German Kampfgruppe. It's basically the fighting bulk of the 55th Infantry Division, which is commanded by Major General Tokuta Sakurai. So there's two Sakurais. So Shozo Sakurai is the 28th Army. Tokuta Sakurai is the 55th Infantry Group that's going to be doing the fighting. So basically, for our purposes, Tokuta Sakurai is a guy who's sort of in charge immediately of this operation, of the tactical effort of this operation. And he's a China veteran. He's notoriously tough. He has nothing but contempt for the British, and hubris absolutely comes into it. He says it's going to be like child's play doing this. He's given 7,000 troops for the operation. And as I say, the plan was to strike north near Bufidong, which is on the kind of, it's got the Maya Range. Mondor is on the western side of the Maya Range, and you go over the Maya Range through the Nagano Pass. There's these railway tunnels that go through the Maya Range as well, which the Japanese hold. And then in the kind of bottom southeast corner of the 7th Infantry Division's area of operations is Bufidong, and then you've got the Kalapanzin River, then you've got 81st West Africa Division, etc. So he's going to go into Bufidong, come in round the top of 7th Division, whilst also striking from the top. So coming in a sandwich, encircling the 7th Division, destroy them, then cross over the Maui Range and do the same.
Right. So how does it go? That's the so Friday the 4th of February.
Yeah, and I should just say they are incredibly confident of victory. They think this is going to be same old British. Just like they were last time they fought them in the Arakan, no difference whatsoever. They hadn't realised the progression that the British had made. No MT, no motor transport is to be touched because they want to use that. No food supplies are to be touched. Ammunition Hill is where most of the ammunition is supplied. That's supposed to be avoided as much as possible so that they can take it as well. They even come armed with gunners with no guns because they're going to take the British guns. So they are slightly hindering themselves because if they can't destroy the British stuff, they're kind of, it's not, we're not in an age of precision warfare here, so it's quite hard. So what this means is this is going to be predominantly an infantry action.
Yeah.
Coming in at night, in stealth, through the jungle, swords, bayonets, rifles, machine guns.
But as we know, the British have brought Lees with them and are very serious about fighting a combined operations battle in the jungle now with extremely aggressive patrolling. And everyone is trained to fight as an infantry soldier is the other thing. So as we'll see, it's called the admin box for a very good reason, is it's full of clerks and cooks and paymasters and adjutants and quartermasters and things, and they all end up doing their bit. So
yes, and because they've all been trained, cooks and bottle washers and drivers have all been trained in jungle warfare in the intervening months. So what you've got is you've got the Mayu Range, these hills, and they're not particularly high, but they're difficult to get through. This Nagakyadok Pass has been hewn by Indian engineers the previous autumn.
Yeah.
That's now opening, as I said in the last episode, it's called the Okie Pass. And it is really thick jungle here. Lots of noises, lots of animals, snakes, insects, birds, the exoticism of the jungle. And I can't remember if it was Norman Boundler or one of the other eyewitness accounts I was reading, but I think it was Tom Grounds who was in the 25th Dragoons. But, he was saying as they came over the Ngaki Pass and came to this thing, it just looked like this Eden, this absolutely kind of beautiful area, this sort of low-lying kind of dried up paddy fields, but just emerald green from the kind of baby rice and grass, and incredible bird life, incredible butterflies and insects, this place that just seemed otherworldly almost, like a sort of fantasy world. And yet this was going to become this sort of absolute charnel house of violence. But this is a little area called Shinsware, which is just a few huts. There's a kind of chong running through it, or a nulla, as they would call it, which is dried up riverbed kind of circling through. There's these two hills in the middle. It's Ammunition Hill and Artillery Hill. Yeah. And most of there's people that kind of perched around the edge. There's a kind of mule park. There's an MT park, a motor transport park in the northeast of the area. It's a kind of a roughly rectangular area. And when you're thinking about how you lay out a division here, there's not a front as such. The front is to the south, in inverted commas, but it's not a kind of continuous line. So what you've got these three brigades in the 7th Indian Division, and one is protecting the kind of northeast area, the hills into the northeast. That's I think it's the 83rd Brigade, I can't remember. And then you've got 33rd Brigade to the south, and another brigade also to the southeast. Then you've got the administrative area, the admin box. Yeah. It becomes a box because it becomes a defended area. At the moment, it's just the 7th Indian Division administrative area at Shinswaya. Yeah. And then a couple of miles to the north, you've got the divisional headquarters at a place called Longchang, which is on a kind of sort of an outcrop overlooking a little kind of a little nullah below, a little kind of valley below. So that's the kind of layout of the land. And the 25th Dragoons only get there in the early hours of the 5th of February.
Yep.
But early hours of the 4th of February, movement is heard to the east. So between 7th Indian Division's area and the Kalapanzin River by 114th Brigade. That's the brigade that's in the southeast. Yeah. And at 5:30 a.m., that's when Japanese troops are identified as moving north. Yeah. And they are intercepted, and those troops are beaten off, but they then sort of melt away into the jungle. And Messervy is told about these Japanese troops, but they think they're just relief forces, or might have got their way.
Initially. I mean, I think one of the things to remember about Frank Messervy is his headquarters was overrun in the desert, and he's about to experience something similar again. I mean, I absolutely love Frank Messervy. This story, he's an extraordinary figure, and he's in his pajamas. So at 0900, the Gwalior Lancers report a column of 100 Japanese, followed by a further 800.
And Tong Bazaar, I should just say, is quite a long way north of Longchong, which is where. So if you think about it, imagine the Mayu Range running kind of north southwards. Other side of that, you've got Longchong, where the headquarters is. A couple of miles below that, you've got Chinswaya, which is the administrative area. A couple of miles below that, you've got 33 Brigade and 114th Brigade. Tong Bazaar is to the northeast of 7th Indian Division headquarters.
So what this means is they've already got round them.
Effectively.
And that 800 men, that's a full battalion.
So the 3rd Brigade, 89th Brigade, is not 81st, it's 89th Brigade, is ordered up to go and engage these people.
Yeah. And 15 Corps, could you hurry up with those tanks, please? So Lieutenant General Christensen, who's the OC of 15 Corps, sends the 25th Dragoons over the Okie Pass to reinforce 7th Division.
Yeah, so they're going over that night of the 4th, 5th.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Anthony Irwin, who we mentioned in the last episode as one of the local commanders of V-Force, these are the muscle men, the Muslim locals from the northern part of the Arakan. Yeah. He calls in at 7th Indian Division headquarters and says, "Oh yeah, no, we've just seen a whole load of Japanese troops going up towards Tong Bazaar." Yeah, and Messervy goes, "Don't talk such bloody nonsense, Anthony." and Irwin goes, "No, it's true. It's really, really true." So suddenly they're all kind of like, "Okay." Because we've now got Japanese 3 miles to the rear of Longchong, which is where his headquarters is. And on that evening of the 4th of February, Slim orders the 26th Division on standby to move south to help 15th Corps. So the Japanese plan is working because they are reinforcing the arakan now.
Yes, so they're currently being played. Is the
yes,
thing?
And overnight, while the 25th Dragoons are crossing over the Nagakudok Pass, and it's a hair-raising pass, incidentally. It is not really wide enough. You see on Instagram or TikTok, don't you? You see those sort of videos of people cycling around insane mountain paths, and you can just see a drop that goes down for kind of sort of 300 feet or whatever. Yeah. It's kind of like that, but you're doing it in a grant or a lee, I'm going outside to call them. So on the morning of the 5th of February, everyone knows that something is up.
Yeah.
And they're kind of waiting to see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And at that moment, Brigadier Geoffrey Evans reports for duty to General Harold Briggo Briggs, who is the 5th Indian Division headquarters. So he's near Mongdor on the western side of the Mayu Range, the other side. And he's posted to take command of 9th Brigade, which is part of 5th Indian Division, and take over from the existing guy. But Briggs doesn't know anything about this. But he also knows that 9th Brigade are just about to be handed over to 7th Indian Division as well because of this movement that's going on. This is part of the reinforcement. So he says, well, I think you should just head over to Chinsway. And just go over there and take command of the 9th Brigade. So there's lots of sort of movement going on and lots of confusion as well.
Yeah.
But 89th Brigade it's not to the south, it's to the northeast of admin box, does hold the Japanese at bay all day, that day on the 5th of February.
Slim then says 26th Division can go to 15 Corps. And at 7:30 in the morning, you've Major Michael Lowry's commander of B Company, 1st Queen's Regiment, watches Japanese warplanes overhead, which is unusual after all. This definitely means that something's up because the Japanese Air Force have pretty much done what they can to stay out of things. And then he's told there's another 500 Japanese 8 miles behind in the Tongwazar area. So
this is all part of the same ones that Anthony Irwin has seen. These are ones that have been reported to the northeast of Messervy's headquarters. Michael Lowry was a top bloke. He lived very locally to me. He was a lovely, lovely fellow, and I went and visited him a number of times and talked to him all about it. He also published very early after the war his diary that he'd kept.
Right.
So we have his memoir that he wrote. I've got the conversations I had with him, and we've got a facsimile of the diary that he wrote during the war. So we've got a very detailed account of what he was doing, and he was very kind of perceptive and very, he was an Indian Army man, so he'd been out in the Indian Army in the 1930s and was now a company commander.
Yeah,
lovely guy. Anyway, later that morning, they now heard that 1,000 Japanese are attacking and so on, and then they get an order from the Supreme Commander, Mountbatten, that whatever happens, no one is to move. There should be no more retreat. So everyone knows at this point that
something big's going
something is up. Yeah. And throughout that day, Saturday, the 5th of February, Lowry and he's part of 33 Brigade to the south of Shinsware, the administrative area. They recognise, there's firing. And this is the force that are coming up from the south.
Yeah.
We're saying they're going to come around the north, hooking around the north, and again, sandwich the administrative area, in between the two attacks. Yeah. So this is the kind of early forays, sort of jitter raids on the southern bit of it.
Yeah.
But the main attack is scheduled to come in the morning. And they all go to bed at the night of on the 5th, 6th up at Longchong at the divisional headquarters. And most people kind of decide to sleep in just all their kit because they know they might be attacked at any moment. But Messervy is having none of it. He gets into his pajamas. And gets his head down.
Oh, he's so cool.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah. It's very good.
So then the following morning, Sunday the 6th of February, at 02:45 hours, Michael Lowry's woken up by Sergeant Inskip to 10 platoon reporting Japanese movement.
So there's this building sense that something's going on. Japanese are coming. They're manoeuvring around in the jungle. This is all kind of, creaking leather and shots ringing out. And of course, the problem when and Lowry is on this kind of hill point in a sort of hill clearing and amongst the jungle on this kind of knoll to the south. And you just can't see ahead. So this is where, if you're not careful, the jungle starts to play games with you and becomes your enemy once more rather than your friend. So, this is why all that training is so important, because you have to get out of that mindset. You have to get into a mindset where, no, we are good enough to be able to defeat this. And that's where individual company commanders, platoon commanders really, really, and sergeants and stuff, platoon sergeants, all really, really kick in. They're really, really important.
So Lowry orders firing onto these Japanese, and then at come 0500 hours, the Japanese attack 7th Division's headquarters.
Yep. And this is hand-to-hand fighting.
Which shows the extent to which they've got in. They've got right in between Messervy's deployments.
Messervy is killing Japs himself with his carbine.
With his carbine in his pajamas, yeah. I mean, it's quite extraordinary. There's an attack on 33 Brigade to the south at dawn. The rain doesn't help with 25th Dragoons' efforts. But, I mean, this is as desperate as it can be, this first phase of the battle, isn't it, really?
Yeah, and no one knows what's going on.
No one knows what's going on because everyone's under attack. And
everyone's under attack. And what they do know is radio signals will come through that 7th Indian Division headquarters is under attack. Then the wireless goes dead.
Yeah.
They have no idea what's happened to Messervy. They have to assume that he's been killed.
Yeah.
So Christensen then orders the 5th Division to send over yet more reinforcements, which is the 2nd West Yorkshires. And they've been involved in quite big fighting around kind of Maundor already. Yeah. So one of their squadrons, one of their companies, C Squadron, is quite depleted, but I think A and B are sort of in reasonable fettle. But anyway, they're now hurrying across the Ngakudok Pass as well to Chinswaya, plus 2 extra batteries of the 24th Mountain Regiment with these kind of pack howitzers. Yeah. So they're going as well. And Brigadier Geoffrey Evans, of course, is hurrying over as well.
Yeah.
And he gets over and then is not in quite the right bit, so has to move north across this track, which is linking the southern brigades to the administrative area. Because what he goes over, as do the 25th Dragoons, and they don't go to the administrative area, they go to support the southern brigades.
Where the brigades are, yeah.
That's where they think, and then suddenly the attack is coming from the north, so they think, oh my God, we better get up to the administrative area straight away, because that's where all our supplies are. If that's overrun, we're really toast. So there's people going all over the place, and they're going along these sort of very, very dodgy jungle tracks. In the rain, it's pouring, everyone's slipping, the carriers are slipping. Evans is just walking. He's walking with his stick, basically.
And he's been told to take command of the admin box and hold at all costs. So having been bibbling around, not really sure where he's going and what's going on, he's now got this job. V-Force under Anthony Owen now turn up as well. There's about 50 of them. And they get themselves on a knoll overlooking the west, what they call the West Gate.
Yeah, so there's the entrance. So that's the start of the Ngakudok Pass.
Which they then rename Rorke's Drift, which shows the way things are going.
Yeah, exactly.
And then 7th Div HQ, what's left of the HQ falls back to the admin box.
Yeah, a number of people have been killed.
Yeah, number of people
taken prisoner, whatever. No one knows where Messervy is. He's just gone.
Evans gets the admin box at 11:30, and he says, about 11:30, I arrived at the core administrative area, which is later to be known as the admin box. It was a site in a large clearing of dried-up paddy fields and occupied an area about 1,200 yards square. So this is nothing. Surrounding it was high hills covered in dense jungle, so that an attacker could get right up close without being seen. In the middle of the clearing was a small scrub-covered hill, about 200 yards in length, perhaps 150 feet high, around which was stacked all the ammunition. In other parts of the area were big dumps of petrol and supplies, the supply echelons of the various brigades, a mule company, and such installations as an officer's shop and a main dressing station. I did not know there was a hospital until the following night. The discovery was made in the most horrifying circumstances.
Yeah, that's to come.
That's all. So that's an excellent description, actually. That illustrates it very clearly. He's shown round by the commanding officer of the 24th Light Anti-Tank Regiment, Lieutenant Colonel Cole, King Cole, who's a solicitor. But basically, what you've
solicitor
got
in civilian life. What were you in civilian life?
You've got gunners, and it's the backstage area of the division, basically.
Yes.
And they know that they've got to set up a perimeter, but they haven't got enough people to cover the entire area. Evans sets about orders to get this defence underway. And then, this is all happening very quickly. At 1200 hours, Slim orders 5th and 7th Divisions to hold fast, while 36th Division is ordered south.
Yeah.
71st Brigade of 26th Division are ordered to the admin box to bolster it. But basically, this is all like a rush to plug the gap, to hold up the Japanese. And actually, what we're seeing here is if this works, it's a way to get them to fight for the very thing they're after, which is supplies and stuff, and destroy themselves in the process. If only get enough bodies there in time to do it.
Yeah,
so
exactly that.
So the Allied strategy, the British have developed this idea that you exploit the Japanese need to live like this and fight like this, is only going to work if you can actually get enough people in place. So by 1400 hours, you have 2 squadrons of the 25th Dragoons, plus A, B, and C companies of the West Yorks, who've made it over.
Yes.
Commanded left by Lieutenant Munchie Cree.
I love the fact he's called Munchie. Anyone who looks so a Munchie in Urdu is a teacher, and he's 38, but he's balding and looks like a sort of professor. So his nickname is Munchie.
2 of the companies are in good strength, A and B company, but C company is only on 2 platoons because they've been bashed up in other fighting. And it isn't until 2:30 that Frank Messervy appears in the admin box.
So suddenly there he is, and everyone goes,
Thank God for
It's
that.
this huge relief because he is this kind of inspirational commander.
Yeah.
Everyone loves him. And he looks at Jeffrey Evans. He goes, "You carry on with the fight, Jeff. I'll get on with planning the next one." So again, it's all about this is about instilling confidence. And then he gets on the radio because everyone knows that he's missing. Everyone knows that headquarters has been overrun. No one's in the dark on this. And he goes, "It's General Frank Messervy here. I'm back in command, and here are my orders." And he tells 89th Brigade to pull back to previous position, so further to the east immediately in the hills to the east of the admin box. "We will fight them where we stand and beat them. And after that, we will resume our attack on Buffedon." Yeah. And Evans, meanwhile, is issuing instructions. Some Oscars sweep over at around 3 o'clock. And then at 5 o'clock, Evans creates the brigade command post, which is a sort of, and establishes a kind of sort of perimeter with the 25th Dragoons now adding a sort of protective guard around the site. And they are in turn given a protective guard by the 3rd, 4th Bombay Grenadiers. And he issues instructions. "Your job is to stay put and keep the Japanese out. Hold your fire and conserve ammunition. Wait till you see the yellow of their eyes before you shoot." Not the whites of their eyes, because, of course, this is a different era and they're, et cetera, et cetera. "Make sure one round means one dead Jap." And basically no withdrawals, no movement at all after dark. If anyone moves after dark, they're to be assumed to be Japanese and to be opened fire on. No conversations above a whisper after dark. And he also wants daily reports on the number of Japanese killed by each unit. And at the end, the one who's killed the most will get a prize.
There's going to be a prize.
And one who does the least gets a rotten egg.
I mean, this is quite extraordinary. And then at 1800, the 25th Dragoons are ordered back to the admin box, having extracted their vehicles out of the mud. And then at 1900 hours, and when his last light, it must be around 6. It must get dark.
Yes, I suppose so.
I suppose so. There's a first Japanese attack on the northwest side near the Mule Company, which is seen off. And then at 22:30, B Squadron of the 25th Dragoon Leaguers at admin box. The first day is basically this mad scramble to find out, A, what's going on, what to do next, where on earth is Frank Messervy, how do we stiffen our lines, how do we answer the attacks that seem to be coming from everywhere, and how do we get the Japanese to do what we've been talking about getting them to do all this time. And that is where we will end this part. And in part 2, how the Battle of the Admin Box plays out for your ears only.
What a cliffhanger.
What a cliffhanger. See you in a second.
The football season is back. Join Micah, Alan and me on the Rest is Football for top analysis, outrageous gossip and the inside track on everything going on in the Premier League.
I'm going to say if Man City get any injuries...
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, hang on. No,
come on. we haven't even got to Man City yet. Just what Arsenal going to do. And if they get that striker in, I think they'll win the league.
Hold on. You've just done exactly the same with what I've done.
You've just said about if Man City get a lot of injuries, then Arsenal will win. What the has that got to do with it?
I will, of course, be on Match of the Day. You're on, Alan, aren't you?
I am.
And Micah's not. Micah's because you're doing Sunday, aren't you?
Yeah, Super
What's
Sunday.
happened? I thought you were on with us.
I can't work Saturday, Sunday. I'd be
2 days working.
I'd be knackered. It's either or. I can't do both days.
What am I listening to here? I can't do Saturday and Sunday.
Sitting in a room with you two idiots for 12 hours doing matching
the head of wobble, will you? You can't work Saturdays and Sundays.
Oh, no wonder his career petered out. The Rest is Football. Listen on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts, or watch us on YouTube.
Welcome back to We Have Ways of Making You Talk. It's the Battle of the Admin Box. We've laid out the exact situation and the extraordinary measures and rapidity of response on the first day from the British, finding out which is their arse, which is their elbow, figuring out what to do next, and so on.
I would urge people to do it. I don't know if you can find it, but I would urge people to look on Google Earth. It's really worth it because you can see you can find one can find the admin box on Google Earth.
Oh, really? It comes up as an actual...
Yeah. So if you look in Maungdaw, which is Maungdaw on Google Earth, that will get you there. And then you can see really clearly the Mayu Range. You can see the Teknaf Peninsula, which is this sort of finger stretching down opposite Maungdaw. You can see Akyab below, and you can see the Mayu Range. You can see Bufidong on the other side of the Mayu Range. So north of Bufidong on the eastern side is where 33 Brigade are. And it's further to the north is the admin box. And it's sort of clearing. You can see where the roads come down.
Yeah.
It's a first clearing, basically. And you can see Artillery Hill and all the rest of it.
Yeah. Right. So
that's it. It's like and it is a kind of sort of rectangular area even to this day.
Right. So Monday the 7th, the Japanese cut off the Okidoke Pass.
Yep. So they're completely surrounded now. They are, to all intents and purposes, surrounded.
And in the tradition of all good optimists, the Japanese radio in Tokyo announces that 14th Army has been cut off and destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, only one division has been cut off, and that hasn't been destroyed yet.
Yeah, but good news is good news, Jim.
Yeah.
Then at 10 o'clock, Brigadier Evans is told to take command of the admin box and hold at all costs.
I mean, he already has, but it's sort of reinforced, whatever, but stick with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, actually, because the second day is relatively quiet until the attack on the main dressing station.
Well, so what the Japanese are doing on this first day is they're getting in position all around the admin box. They're recognizing that this is the key thing. Just if they can cut off the administrative area of 7th Infantry Division, whilst keeping the pressure up on the infantry brigades, then they will deny the enemies the supplies and they'll get them themselves. It's a classic kind of +1, -1 benefits. So what they're doing is they're waiting for nightfall. So the previous day they've kind of moved around. They're now getting into position, which they've done overnight. Day is a lying up period. Now we're going to wait for nightfall, and then we'll kind of make our first attack.
I mean, it's quite interesting because the British, the longer you give them, the more organised they're going to be in their defence, and that the admin box is certainly off balance on the first day, probably still kind of on the second day. In a sense, the longer you give the British to get dug in and stuck in, is surely less to your advantage, especially if you're going to end up running on fumes sooner or later if you're the Japanese. So it strikes me as an interesting choice that you don't come at dawn, while they're still disorganised, or potentially still disorganised. Anyway,
I think there's quite a lot of hubris getting in the way here.
Yeah, well, yes, possibly. Yes, they think it's going to be easy now. They know where the British are and all that. Yeah.
And the question is, why do they attack the MDS? Well, they just attack the MDS because that's the first thing they see. Basically, I mean, it's easy meat, and they can get there. They get medical supplies. That's quite useful. It's close to the Nagakudo Pass, which they've already secured. So it's sort of convenience, really, as much as anything else. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to sort of bite out chunks. And because the whole point is they're trying to move lightly, and because also there is this culture of kind of, not surrendering and all the rest of it, they just kill everyone they can.
Yeah. So they're bayoneting the wounded and so on, aren't they?
Yeah. Shoot them in the beds and all that, and also killing the surgeons and doctors. That's completely pointless and unhelpful. But interesting, some of the men that are included in this attack are INA people.
Right. From
Subhash Chandra Bose, the Indians that we've talked about before. And everyone else hears this. That's the point. Everyone else. So what you've got is you've got wire perimeter, and it's not like a big square where everyone's in a sort of behind a kind of palisade fort. You've got your own little areas, and those little areas have got little pickets and they've got sort of sharpened bamboos around them, and you're in trenches, and you've laid a few mines, and there's wire, and you've cleared fields of fire, and you've got your mortar pits and blah blah blah. But everyone's got their own little bit. That's the point.
And you're all defending each other in that
And what
sense.
you can't do is you can fire, but you can't get out of your position. So if you're over by artillery at the foot of Artillery Hill, you've got to stay at the foot of Artillery Hill. You can't go to the rescue of the MDS. That's absolutely completely strict. So other troops at the admin box can hear this slaughter going on. They can hear this fighting going on. They can't do anything about it. Anthony Irwin up at Rorke's Drift and the West Gate is just, they're all absolutely terrified.
If there's one way to steel troops against you, attack the hospital. If the Japanese wanted to carry out a sort of pointless own goal, this is one sure way of doing it, isn't it? It's confirming all the things that Bill Slim has said about how they're an evil entity in their own right, then it must be destroyed, isn't it? It's sort of wildly foolish and pointless. So the third day, 0800 hours.
Yeah, because you can't until it's light, till it's dawn, you can't move. But now it's light. So A company of the 2nd West Yorks with a troop of 25th Dragoons attacked the MDS and completely overrun it. Get it back. Japanese disappearing back into the forest.
And discover the full reality of the horror of what's happened there. And then the Japanese carry on attacking during the day, which is interesting, isn't it? So 362 Battery attacked in Wet Valley at first light. B echelon area is attacked from the Blood Nullah.
Well, this is really interesting. So there is this nullah, this dried up riverbed, which snakes from the kind of southwest up past kind of Artillery Hill, and which is the bigger of the two hills in the middle of the admin box. And the West Yorks are dug in along this, and they just slaughter the whole lot. The whole lot are killed. 110
Japanese killed in that encounter.
The entire company is destroyed.
God. Then in the afternoon, a Gurkha battalion from 89th Indian Brigade are attacked trying to reinforce the box, trying to get in on their way in.
They're on the eastern side.
Yeah, and B company for the 2nd West Yorks stormed Gurkha Hill. And the thing is, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the Japanese are choosing to attack by night or at first light. The British are attacking by day. So there's this sort of on-off element to the battle, isn't there? But the crucial part is, and this is what we were talking about, what we were saying earlier, is that this is the plan in the end. This is how you beat the Japanese, because you can supply and they can't. And while we have had Japanese air Oscars over the admin box, what you've now got is Dakotas over the admin box.
Exactly. And this is directly because of the success of Frank Carey's air fighting school and the arrival of Spitfire Mark 8s and that clearing out of the skies, more or less. They haven't got air supremacy, but they've got air superiority, and that's enough.
And in this drop, Slim has asked for a bottle of rum to be included in every 4th to 5th airdrop, and Snelling's already ordered this.
So, he's already done it. He's already got it.
Because they're simpatico to one another, and the way
and also they don't have parachute silk to drop these, so he gets jute. He gets them in Calcutta and Bangalore. He gets them to make special jute ones, which work okay. And they also have quite a lot of packages which are just sort of wrapped up with cotton, and wrapped on they just drop them. And several people are killed by falling packages.
By falling stuff. The Japanese Air Force then bomb and hit Ammunition Hill, which if you're the Japanese and you want the ammunition...
It's not what you want.
It's not particularly helpful. And Oscars and Zeros do mix up with 31 and 62 Squadron Dakotas.
They don't shoot anything down, really.
But the interesting thing here is that in the air, in this instance, all of this air stuff is... The wind is blowing in the Allied direction here, because if the Japanese can't bomb with any accuracy the things they need to attack in the admin box area and blowing up the ammunition, it's all pointless, isn't it? It's their effort's pointless. Day 4, the 9th.
So this is the day that we described at the very beginning. This is Norman Bound. This is where they attack out in the morning. So this time they're coming from the north towards Ammunition Hill, which is the smaller of the two hills. And Norman Bowdler and co are on that northern bit. So the 25th Dragoons are leaguered round Ammunition Hill on different sides. And they're attacking straight out of the north.
I think it's interesting that Lees are actually pretty well suited to this stuff.
Very.
Because you've got the heavier gun for dealing with bigger formations of people, and then the cannon on the turret is an extremely effective anti-personnel weapon. So in a way, although they might be obsolete in the Western Desert or in Sicily or in Italy or wherever, or in Normandy.
Perfect.
They're actually ideal for
There's also, so you've got Ammunition Hill in the middle, and then you've got Artillery Hill, which is the bigger one. Then you've got to the north, you've got the MT Park on the right hand side, and again beyond that, you've got another little outpost, which is where the MT platoon of the 4th 8 Gurkhas are, and the guy who's the charge of the 4th 8 MT platoon is a chap called Lieutenant Scott Gilmore, who's come over from America. He's a kind of educated East Coast American. And he's come over to help the British in North Africa. And he's in an American field ambulance team. And after that, they kind of think, well, okay, well, change of circs and all the rest of it. And most of them go off and rejoin American units. And he thinks, no, actually, I want to go and do something else. So he joins the Indian Army and joins the Gurkhas and gets sent out to India. So he's an American officer in the 4th 8 Gurkhas.
Yeah, extraordinary.
He's there with his MT platoon people and some Punjabis and 6 members of the King's Own Scottish Border. So it's a real kind of mishmash. And they're on another little knoll surrounded by the jungle and hearing all these sounds coming from down below. And they have no real idea of what's going on. They're feeling incredibly isolated and just sort of waiting for it to be their turn, which of course it's going to be.
Well, and the Japanese start doing this thing of they attack from the same place in the same way. You hear them issue their orders. They say we're coming to get you, Tommy, and all this sort of stuff, and announce their arrival, which is, for all their infiltration skill and reputation, seems an extremely strange way of going things about. So on the 5th day, Thursday the 10th, at first light, General Sakurai orders an all-out Japanese effort.
Oh, yeah, coordinated all around, hitting at different times, which you kind of wonder why they haven't done that already.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of wondering why, isn't there? And leading forces of British 26th Division start moving south.
Yeah, so they're now north of Tung Bazaar, and they're kind of heading down on the western side onto the eastern side of the Mayu Range.
So the Japanese need to win really before they turn up.
Yes.
In other words. So 72 hours to follow. On the 6th day, there's an attack on Artillery Hill.
This is a big attack. So this is coming from the south. This is the bigger of the two hills, and they're attacking from the south. They're climbing up on the southern bit and and getting onto the summit. And this is an amazing action because the way the defense is, the way Jeffrey Evans has laid out the defense is mainly around these little localities down in the base of the admin box. And the bottom of Artillery Hill actually seeds back into the jungle. You can't really defend the southern base of it.
It's difficult because there's a tree line and everything and lots of cover, and the enemy can come from anywhere.
Yeah. So they've crept up overnight onto the kind of onto the southern slopes and pushing on to the north. So what they've got to do is they've got to try and take them out, and this is where this is a really significant action, and it's a really significant action for those who are listening and go on to listen to the next ones about Imphal and Kohima. This is an important action because what they do is an absolutely incredible bit of coordinated infantry armor, and it shows for the first time really just how effective these Lee tanks are. So basically what happens is they blast the top of Artillery Hill with their 75mm rounds. Absolutely blast it. While the 2nd West Yorkshires of A Company of the 2nd West Yorkshires are advancing behind it. And this is the advantage of the Grant. It can give you fire support behind which the infantry can advance right up to the moment of engagement. And then at the last minute, they switch from 75mm high explosive rounds to machine guns. They've absolutely shredded the whole top of the hill from vegetation and trees and what have it, laying it bare, exposing the Japanese. The infantry are then almost upon them before they can react, and they clear most of the hill.
Yeah. So the Japanese are routed. So again, it's whatever advantage they may initially leverage comes to nothing.
But they've never come against this. They've got nothing to come against the Grants.
No way of matching it, yeah. On the 7th day, the 12th of February, which is a Saturday, there's further attritional fighting at the box.
Yeah, so that's sort of sniping. The Japanese have now got a mountain gun to the northeast, in the hills to the northeast, and a strong point. They're firing kind of, howitzer rounds onto the admin box repeatedly.
The following day, Ammunition Hill is hit again. Artillery Hill is finally cleared of enemy on the 13th. The 14th is Monday. There's more attritional fighting. More shell fire on the Tuesday, the 15th, on Ammunition Hill. And the Japanese attack the C Company Hill, which is on the other side of the Nagaki-dake Pass from Rorke's Drift, where Anthony Irwin is. So you've got the mouth of the Okie-doke Pass. On one hand, you've got a little knoll, which is where Anthony Irwin is. On the other side, a bit further back in, that's where C Company. But again, they're heavily counterattacked during daylight by the 25th Dragoons and A Company. I mean, they're not unlike the Fire Brigade, the tanks in this encounter, aren't they? They're and also this massive force multiplier that, as you say, the Japanese have simply no response to. And as long as you can keep the tanks running, as long as you've got ammunition and fuel for the tanks, the Japanese are jiggered, really. There's no answer. And that same morning at 10 o'clock, they make contact with the 1st Links Regiment.
To the north, yeah.
Coming down with 26th Indian Division. So the relief is at hand for the admin box. And in a big way, it's that thing of get the Japanese stuck onto you, get them to hang around long enough and get them to commit to the point where you can then destroy them is what this comes to. So on the 16th of February, early in the morning, 2nd King's Own Scottish Borderers reaches the box, plus the headquarters of 89th Indian Infantry Brigade. So
the KOSB are part of 89th Infantry Brigade.
Yeah. And then at 1000 hours, C Squadron, the 25th Dragoons makes contact with the 1st Lincolns from 26th Division.
Yeah, and what they're trying to do is knock out this gun to the northeast that's overlooking the whole thing. And this is the one that's causing all the fires on, Ammunition Hill and everything. This is one that keeps firing, and this is the troublesome mountain gun. And they know that there's a kind of strong point up there that's been dug into. The Japanese are up there, and they're not budging. And there's an absolutely incredible action up there where the guy who's one of the company commanders of the 1st Lincolns does this charge on this machine gun position, where the gun, which is near where the gun is, and this hill, and he's actually a Canadian, and he gets hit but continues on and takes it. And he gets a VC for that. Gosh,
yeah, wow. I mean, this is the thing. Although of course, this is the thing to remember about this is although the Japanese have have offered themselves up to be defeated, this is absolute. It's hand-to-hand stuff, isn't it? It's very, very bitterly fought and closely fought.
Oh, it really, really is
in every way imaginable.
Yes, completely. It's an absolute horror story. And it's also starting to really smell because there's loads and loads of dead Japanese left on the top of Artillery Hill. There's no means of getting rid of them. There's no means of burying them. There's no time to do that. It's absolutely horrendous is the truth of it. It's stinky. A lot of the trees have been hammered and smashed. This Eden that Tom Grounds talks about when he first turns up as, that's all gone. It's just... Yeah, Major Charles Ferguson Hoey. He's the guy who gets the VC.
The VC up there. Then the battle runs on kind of at that pitch, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's sniping. It's shelling. But what is really noticeable is the daylight attacks have stopped. The nighttime attacks have stopped. It's almost nothing. And what's happening is the Japanese all around, they're starving. They're starving in the jungle. So what they're finding is they're finding little parties trying to come in and just actually pinch stuff and pinch food rather than, actually doing a concerted attack.
Because
they're starving.
It's not worked.
No.
Because the grabbing the supplies has not panned out.
Exactly. But after the MDS has been overrun, they've created a new kind of hospital, which is in one of the nullahs, one of these dried up riverbeds. And by Sunday, the 20th of February, there's 500 casualties there, from various wounds through to disease, whatever, they desperately need to get them out. So on the evening of Monday the 21st is a quiet day. And there's this sense that they've turned a corner in a big way.
We've been going a fortnight, essentially, by now.
Yeah. And then the Japanese do another attack in Bloody Nullah. Same route, dead still lying there, rotting, being picked at by vultures. They attack down the same route and get slaughtered again. And by this point, in the evening of the 21st of February, 5th Division, which are on the other side of the Okidoke Pass, they're moving up the pass. And that evening, knowing that this is happening, C Squadron of the 25th Dragoons, plus 2 companies of borderers, of the King's Own Scottish borderers, leave the box and push up the Okidoke Pass. This is one of just sort of probing patrol work, see what's happening. And that night they meet. Well, the following morning, the 22nd.
And then the Japanese, Colonel Tanahashi orders withdrawal. They know the writing's on the wall at this point. On the following day, on the Wednesday, the 23rd, 0.315, which is...
so that's where the gun is and when where Ferguson Hoey does his thing.
Overlooking stuff is captured. And on the Friday, the 25th, General Hanaya announces the Hago offensive over, leaving behind 5,000 Japanese dead at the admin box. So, I mean, from a promising start where they do catch literally Frank Messervy in his pajamas and do gull the British into sending people in the wrong direction. And, from the initial tactical surprise, which is after all how they won all those times, how they won the year before last, as it were, by tactical surprise, by catching the British off balance, by sending them off on wild goose chases, all this sort of stuff. Even though that's worked this time, the British haven't fallen for it.
No, it's absolutely amazing. It's a sea change. That same day, the 25th of February, actually 200 exhausted Japanese troops retreating, pulling back southwards, go straight across the front of Mike Lowry's Queen's Regiment, B Company. They just kill the lot.
Cut them down, yeah. Right.
And by this point, on the 25th of February, 15 calls back on the offensive again. So Messervy's as good as his word. Evans, you get on with fighting this one. I'll
figure out what we do next.
And they do. And the tunnels of Razabal and Bufadong, they're all captured on the 12th of March, and it's all over.
It's extraordinary, really, in that, the Japanese had such high hopes at the start of this.
Japanese lose, they cut their attack with 7,000, and by the time that Razabal and Bufadong have fallen, they've lost 7,000 to 100%.
God.
But it's an insignificant battle on one level. On another one, it's very significant because it shows that the theories that Slim and Messervy and co have all been having work. That if you hold your ground, the Japanese can be beaten. And it absolutely punctures once and for all the myth of the bogeyman, the Superman.
Well, and that if everyone from the top down knows that that's how you're going to do it, it means you can't have a company, a battalion commander who wobbles and thinks, actually, sod this, chaps, we're out of here. Or a company commander who thinks, no, I can't get the guys to do this. Everyone knows. The men know, the officers know, the NCOs know, because that style of leadership that Slim's adopted and that Messervy has and that's been radiating confidence down. Because that first day, if you just put the first day to people, what's going to happen next? If it had been the British Army of the year before, of the Arakan offensive the year before, well, they'd probably make a right holics of it, and they don't. I mean, I think one of the really striking things is how good the radio communication is in those first 2 or 3 days, that you're getting orders and situations being updated very, very fast, all the way back to Slim at his headquarters, and him being able to respond with orders in return. And that speaks to, it's not a thing we've talked about, that obviously the technological advances that have been made with radio, the training that goes with it, people being able to rely on the equipment, which means that an army commander can talk to his brigadiers in a situation like the admin box and tell them what to do. That's a mark of colossal progress, as well as the sort of headline things we talked about, that they've combed through the whole army and got the whole thing working. And that, thank God for the monsoon break.
Yeah. Yeah.
Simple as that. Right. So that was the Battle of the Admin Box, but that's by no means the end of Burma 44. So much more to come because, we've trailed you with Kohima and Imphal as certainly episode 1 was called that.
Yeah, I think we're just calling it Burma 44.
I think it's Burma 44. We've agreed on that. The committee committee has convened and agreed. Anyway, but if you want to listen to all these in one big dollop, in one go, in one massive gulp, then subscribe to our Apple channel, Officer Class, or join our Patreon, where there's lots of other stuff, including talks from We Have Ways Festival, which will be appearing. And join us for more of Burma 44 in our next episode. Thanks very much for listening. It's goodbye from me, and it's...
Good night bye for good night. And it's goodbye for me too. Cheerio.
Cheerio.
And there you have it. Dr. Al-Bamawi is not responsible for the death of Lord Harmson.
British Podcast Award nominee for Best New Podcast.
We simply must ask ourselves who planted the idea in Lord Harmson's head that he was stung by a bee. Who was in the hospital garden that very morning to do so, and who was sleeping with his wife?
British Podcast Award nominee for Best Fiction.
Dr. Sir Michael Winstanley. Please.
British Podcast Award nominee for the Listener's Choice Award.
Officers, take Dr. Sir Michael away. Show him to his cell. He could do with a lie down. He's been a busy little bee. No, please. Okay.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
What?
It wasn't recording. Oh, what? Stupid mic.
Everything okay?
No.
Why not?
The adventure didn't record. We only have the end.
But that was the best adventure yet.
Yeah, I know that.
From Goalhanger, the breakneck series Gen Z is hooked on, says The Times.
Oh, okay. Got
Let
it.
me hold your weight.
Okay, well, I'm going to do No Carb November, so I might be a little heavier than usual.
Shut up and get on with it.
Very funny, mildly sweary, and hugely popular, says The Guardian.
Okay. Oh, I'm on.
Excellent.
All right. Not that bad.
No, not at all.
Sherlock & Co. The Adventure of the Red Circle begins Tuesday the 20th of August. Catch up with the show now wherever you get your podcasts.